Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare.
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपीकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। बोलो श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की जय। बोलो श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। हरे कृष्णा
everyone.
हरे कृष्णा रवि
Jai.
हरे कृष्णा अजय। Right, so we have again changed our timings, so I guess we'll see how people get adjusted again. But this week में देखते हैं कैसे रहता है, then we'll decide. So last Thursday हम लोग श्लोक 32 पढ़ रहे थे, Canto 3 and Chapter 29, yeah? और जैसा कि इसमें हम लोग जानते हैं, कपिल मुनि एक भक्त के बारे में बता रहे हैं और भक्ति के बारे में बता रहे हैं कि एक भक्त को कैसे होना चाहिए और कैसे भक्ति करनी चाहिए। क्या तो यही लास्ट में फिर वो कंपेयर कर रहे थे कि इतनी सारी जो लिविंग एंटिटीज हैं, 8.4 मिलियन स्पेसीज लिविंग एंटिटीज, क्या उन 8.4 स्पेसीज लिविंग एंटिटीज में कर्मों के हिसाब से जो भी शरीर जिसको भी मिलता है उसमें कंपेयर कर रहे हैं कि which is better, which living entity is better in terms of, you know, who can try to get liberated and who is in general better, right? तो ऐसे कपिल मुनि डिस्क्राइब कर रहे थे। And then as a human being, it was mentioned is better than, you know, other like in the other 8.4 million species. And then Kapil Muni is saying that better than the Brahman who knows the purpose of Vedas is he who can dissipate all doubts, and better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles. So a Brahman is better than others, but who is better than a Brahman is the one who actually can dissipate all the doubts on Vedas, right? Who can answer the questions on Vedas. And even better than the person who understands the Vedas and can answer the questions, the better is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles, right? So one who can actually follows the Vaishnava Dharma, who can follow those principles is even better than any Brahman or even better than any knowledgeable person who can dissipate all doubts, yeah? And then Kapil Muni is saying that better than even him who follows the Brahminical principles is one who is liberated from all material contamination, yeah? So the one who has self-realized, following the principles, and then who has been self-realized and is kind of not attached to the material world anymore, like to the Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. And then Kapil Muni is saying that even better than him is a pure devotee, yeah? So even better than all Brahmins and all people who understand all Vedas and so on and so forth, and even people who are self-realized, yeah, who have realized their soul, better than all them is a pure devotee. A devotee who executes devotional service without exception of reward, yeah? So who is doing the surrender to Lord Shri Krishna and who is doing the devotional service in love of Lord Krishna and is doing all karmas for Lord Shri Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what Kapil Muni is saying. And that's how a pure devotee is described as a highest perfection in life. Yeah, so that's what Kapil Muni is saying. So today we'll start with Shlok 33. Yeah. So Anil
जी हाँ तस्मान्मयत् पर्पिता शेष क्रिया अर्थात्मा निरंतरः मध्यर्पितात्मनः पुंसो मयि सन्न्यस्तकर्मणः न पश्यामि परं भूतं कर्तुः समदर्शनात्. Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine and who therefore engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life, everything unto me without cessation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So therefore, I do not find is what Kapil Muni is saying because he is none other than, of course, as we know, avatar of Lord Vishnu. Yeah. And he's saying in the previous shlok, the greatest is the pure devotee. Yeah. And what a pure devotee does, he's totally surrendered unto Lord Shri Krishna, who has no other interest. Yeah. Who engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life unto me, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what Lord Shri Krishna is saying that there is no other greater person than a pure devotee, right? So that's the most important part mentioned here is that there is no one, there is no highest perfection other than a pure devotee. Yeah, it says here, like in this verse, the word samdarshanat means that he no longer has any separate interest. The devotee's interest and the Supreme Personality of Godhead's interest are one. For example, Lord Chaitanya, in the role of a devotee, also preached the same philosophy. He preached that Krishna is the worshipful Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the interest of his pure devotee is the same as his own. Yeah, so is what Kapil Muni is mentioning. And then it's also mentioned here that a devotee who is a most confidential servant of the Lord never does anything for his personal account, right? Like in the previous shloks, we saw like how bhakti was explained, like different types of bhakti. How some people will just go to the temple and pray for a good health or for a lot of money, right? Or for different things. But a pure devotee doesn't ask for anything for himself. Yeah, is what is being mentioned here. A devotee who is a most confidential servant of the Lord never does anything for his personal account, but does everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is clearly stated, Mai sannyasta karmana hai. The devotee works, but he works for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. And it is also stated, Maya arpita manah. He gives his mind unto me. These are the qualifications of a devotee who, according to this verse, is accepted as the highest of all human beings. Yeah. So that is how Kapil Muni is describing after comparing 8.4 million species, which we know that the highest of all those is human being, and out of that, highest of all the human beings is a pure devotee. Yeah. Ajay?
मन सैतानि भूतानि प्रमेद्वः हुमानयन ईश्वरो जीव कल्याण प्रविष्टो भगवानिति. Such a perfect devotee offers respects to every living entity because he is under the firm conviction that the Supreme Personality of God has entered the body of every living entity as the super soul or controller. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So a pure devotee also offers respect to all the living entities, not necessarily just the human beings, because say Ishvaro Jiva Kalya Pravishto Bhagwan Aniti, right? So Pravishto is like the Lord has entered into every living entity as the super soul. Yeah. So this is how pure devotee is being described. Ravi?
Bhakti yogascha maya man yudiritaha yayo rekata renava purusha vrajeta. My dear mother, O daughter of Manu, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and majestic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of Supreme Person simply by the devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So my dear mother, and who is the mother?
Devhuti.
Devhuti, right? And she is daughter of Manu.
Manu.
Yeah. Shambhu Manu, right? If you
Shambhu.
remember. So Kapil Muni is addressing his mother, Devhuti, and he's saying that Bhakti Yoga Chaksha Yoga Cha. Like Bhakti Yoga is basically the science of devotional service. Yeah. By doing that, one can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person. Yeah. Says here, simply by that devotional service. So just by the Bhakti Yoga, one can go back to the Godhead, can achieve the abode of Supreme Person, yeah, Purusham Vrajeta. So, and it's a nice purport explained here. Ajay, read.
Here in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapil Dev perfectly explains that the mystic yoga system consisting of 8 different kinds of yoga activities has to be performed with the aim of coming to the perfectional stage of Bhakti Yoga. It is not acceptable for one to be satisfied simply by practicing the sitting posture and thinking himself complete. By meditation, one must attain the stage of devotional service. As previously described, a yogi is advised to meditate on the form of Lord Vishnu from point to point, from ankles to the legs, to the knees, of the knees to the thighs, to the chest to the neck, and in this way gradually up to the face and then to the ornaments. There is no question of impersonal meditation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So what is the important fact mentioned is, जैसा आपने पहले भी श्लोक में पढ़ा था, for a bhakt there has to be Bhagwan, right? So it cannot exist there in vacuum, like there's nothing, everything is one, and then the Ashtanga Yoga, which was described by Kapil Dev, right? Are different yogas, Ashtanga Yoga, right? Like which included pranayam and meditation and everything else. The whole objective of all these yoga activities, yeah, is so that one can focus and one can come to the perfectional stage of Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate perfection, right? And that's what is advised. So then you can meditate on Lord Vishnu without any distraction. Yeah. एतद् भगवतो रूपं ब्रह्माणः परमात्मनः परं प्रधानं पुरुषं देवं कर्म चेष्टितं. So this Purush, whom the individual soul must approach, is the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Brahma and Paramatma. He is the transcendental chief personality and his activities are all spiritual. Yeah, so then Kapil Muni is describing who is this Purush. Yeah, Bhagavato Rupam. Brahmanah Paramatmanah. This Purush is the individual soul must approach to. Who is that? Purush is the eternal form, Adi and Adi, the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who is also known as Brahma and Paramatma, who are the forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually, this is a nice purport. So let's read this. Anilji?
Ji. In order to distinguish the personality whom the individual soul must approach, it is described herein that the Purush, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the chief amongst all living entities and is the ultimate form of the impersonal Brahman, effulgence, and Paramatma manifestation. Since he is the origin of the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation, he is described herewith as the chief personality. It is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam. There are many eternal living entities, but he is the chief maintainer. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also, where Lord Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, I am the origin of everything, indicating the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. His activities are transcendental as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself is saying this, right? He's saying this, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava hai. Like he is the origin of everything, right? So Lord Krishna himself is giving that message, right? That he is the origin of everything, and which includes the Brahma effulgence and the Paramatma manifestation, as we have read, right? And the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu and the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and so on and so forth, right? So is what was also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And let's continue to read, Ravi.
Yes. Wait. Janma karma sa me divyam. The activities and the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are transcendental. They are not to be considered material. Anyone who knows this fact that the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord are beyond material activities or material conception is liberated. Yo vetti tattvaha tayatva deha puraha janma. Such a person, after quitting his body, does not come back again to this material world, but goes to the Supreme Person. It is confirmed here, Purusha Purusham Vajrate Vajret, the living entity goes to the Supreme Personality simply by understanding his transcendental nature and activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so here Kapil Muni, as we know, right, has been describing like what a pure devotee is. So first he compares and then he says that is the highest perfection, right? He is the highest human being. And what happens, like what a pure devotee, what happens to him is once he understands, he understands the Supreme Personality, right? By understanding his transcendental nature and activities. And then also he goes back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Goes to the Supreme Person, and then he never comes back to the material world. Yeah, and the material world, why never comes back to the material world and why should not? Because then you again don't want to get entangled into this whole cycle of the life, the birth, the death, right? The disease and the old age and so on and so forth. Yeah. So that's how a pure devotee is being described. Ajay?
रूप भेदाम स्पदम दिव्यम काल इत्य विधीयते भूतानाम महदादीनाम यतो भिन्न दृशाम भयम. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestation is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor.
Hare Krishna. So what is important to mention here in this shlok is that the time factor, which is the Kal, as we know, Kal, is also a material manifestation of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, says here, Divyam Kal Ityabhidhyate is the manifestation of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then important part which is mentioned is Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhinna Drisham Bhayam, means anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is then afraid of the time factor, right? So like everyone is afraid of death, for example. So that's what is being mentioned here in this purport. Again, it's a good purport. Let's read this. Anilji.
Yeah. Everyone is afraid of the activities of time, but a devotee who knows that the time factor is another representation or manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to fear from the influence of time. The phrase Rupa Bhedas Padam is very significant. By the influence of time, so many forms are changing. For example, when a child is born, his form is small, but in the course of time, that form changes into a larger form, the body of a boy, and then the body of a young man. Similarly, everything is changed and transformed by the time factor or by the indirect control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Usually, we do not see any difference between the body of a child and the body of a boy or young man, because we know that these changes are due to the action of the time factor. There is cause for fear for a person who does not know how time acts. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so nicely described how the body keeps changing, right, for the same soul based on the time. Yeah, and we all know that. There is no dispute about that. Jitendra?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yonta pravishya bhutani bhutarekya khilashaya sa vishna vokya dhiyo yogya kala kalayatam prabhu. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, is the time factor and the master of all masters. He enters everyone's heart. He is the support of everyone, and he causes every being to be annihilated by another. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so basically what is mentioned is that the whole world essentially is manifestation of Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Rinaji?
Yes, Bhaiya. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Na chasya kashchit dayato na dveshyo na cha bhava avishyatya pramatto asau pramattah janmant kritah. No one is dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor is anyone his enemy or friend. But he gives inspiration to those who have not forgotten him and destroys those who have.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so we have read again and again that he is equal to everyone, but still he gives inspiration to those who have not forgotten him and who have surrendered unto him. See here, forgetfulness of one's relationship with Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of one's repeated birth and death. Right? We get conditioned. As soon as we come into this world, we get conditioned. And that is the cause for our birth and death. It says, therefore, that Harim Vinana Mritam Taranti. So no one can be saved from the repetition of birth and death without the help of the Supreme Lord. It is therefore the duty of all living entities to take shelter of the lotus feet of Vishnu and thus save themselves from the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So if you don't take the shelter, that's fine, but then we are continuously conditioned and engaged into this cycle of birth and death. And we see like those how 8.4 million species continuously goes through the cycle of birth and death, right? So the duty of all living beings right, is entities to take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, right? So that's how Kapil Muni is describing like what a bhakti is and what a bhakt should do. is what is being described by Kapil Muni. That's a transcendental knowledge being given by Vishnu's avatar himself. Yeah. Ravi?
Yad bhaya dvati vato ya suryastapati yad bhavayata yad bhayayata dvashayete devo vagano bhati yad bhayata. Out of the fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the wind blows. Out of fear of him, the sun shines. Out of fear of him, the rain pours forth showers. And out of fear of him, the host of heavenly bodies shed their luster. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what Kapil Muni is saying is based on Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything works. Yeah. Vato ayam, Suryastapati. So all those things which you see is based on Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, nice purport, Jitendra.
Na chas. The Lord states in Bhagavad Gita, Madhya Presha Prakriti Sayate. Nature is working under my direction. The foolish person thinks that nature is working automatically, but such an atheistic theory is not supported in the Vedic literature. Nature is working under the superinterdependence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, and we also find here that the sun shines under the direction of the Lord, and the cloud pours forth showers of rain under direction of the Lord. All natural phenomena are under superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. And also basically, as we can see, as we know, definitely like even a small project or whatever we are trying to do doesn't happen by itself, right? So there has to be a plan and there has to be someone who is doing it. And then what is being mentioned here is that everything happens here with under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Yeah. Anilji? Anilji?
Yeah. Yadvannaspatayo bhita lataschoshadhimi saha swe swe kale vigrahanti pushpani cha phalani cha. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trees, creepers, herbs, and seasonal plants and flowers blossom and fructify, each in its own season. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Right? So this is how the nature is functioning, and it is confirmed in the Vedic literature that the Lord's diverse energies are working so nicely that it appears that everything is being done automatically, right? The trees come, the flowers come, the fruits comes, right? And we can even see our living entities, how we grow from childhood to young age and all that. Seems like everything is working perfectly fine. Yeah. But that's in pursuance of the supreme order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what is being mentioned. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Tarun. स्त्रिवंती सरितो भीतानोत सर्पत्युदर्थ है अग्निरिंधे सागिरी भी भूर्णमजति यत भयात. So out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the rivers flow and the ocean never overflows. Out of fear of him only does fire burn, and does the earth with its mountains not sink in the water of the universe. Yeah. So he says, Strivanti Sarito, that's how the rivers flow, right? The ocean never overflows, as we know, right? And we know the earth and the mountains and all that don't sink in the water of the universe. So all those things does not happen just by itself. Yeah, and it's again a nice para. Let's just read this, Tarun. Tarun, are you able to read? Or Ajay?
We can understand from the Vedic literature that the universe is half filled with the water on which Garbhodaksha Vishnu is lying. From his abdomen, a lotus flower has grown, and within the stem of that lotus flower, all the different planets exist. The material scientists explain that all these different planets are floating because of the law of gravity or some other law, but the actual lawmaker is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we speak of law, we must understand that there must be a lawmaker. The material scientists can discover laws of nature, but they are unable to recognize the lawmaker. From Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, we can know who is the lawmaker, who the lawmaker is. The lawmaker is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so clearly mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that the lawmaker is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is the clear message. Yeah, Tarun?
It is said here that the planets do not sink. Since they are floating under the order or energy of the Supreme Godhead, they do not fall down into the water which covers half the universe. All the planets are heavy with their various mountains, seas, oceans, cities, palaces, and buildings, and yet they are floating. It is understood from this passage that all the other planets that are floating in the air have oceans and mountains similar to those on this planet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tarun. So basically, the message is that everything is working under the direction of Supreme Personality of Godhead, is what we are saying. Yeah. And happy Ekadashi to everyone. We'll pause here.
Happy Ekadashi.
So it's a nice day. Very pure and auspicious day. And of course, we had Ram Navami last weekend. So today we are just going to see like some Ram Dhun from one of the processions in Karnataka. That happened last year, but it's a nice tune. So we'll hear that. And then tomorrow we'll see our timings are changed. So we'll see you at 9:20 p.m. EST time, which is 6:50 a.m. India time. Yeah. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.